Hi, Lily. Welcome to the show. And
Thank
it's great having you here because we spoke a couple of months back actually, and we never really got to have more chats after that. So I think it's great seeing you here today.
thank you so much for having me. I was pretty excited when you asked me to come because you're one of the people that I really love. I remember when Bani told me, she's one of the people you should hang out with. I was like, okay, look, I really need to know this person. So it's really cool being able to like finally put a face to the name.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's such a nice compliment. And yeah, I have been seeing you on Twitter and LinkedIn all over with your Lima framework, and I've seen you do a couple of podcasts as well. I've seen that you took over I think SEMrush Twitter profile, and
Yeah,
you
that was
collaborated with them.
that was the start of everything. It was actually the SEMrush Twitter tech thread takeover that started
Hmm.
because the Lima framework was kind of something that I used
Hmm.
privately, and then SEMrush was
Hmm.
like, "Can you do a thread for us?" And yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, that's really incredible. And so before we dive into that, Lima framework, and you walk us through about what it is and what are the challenges and the pain points that it solves for marketing teams and companies. I want to talk more about your experience as a content marketing manager at Animals, which is probably one of the biggest marketing agencies out there. And then you switched gears to freelancing. So I'm just curious, what made you leave the agency world and enter into the freelance landscape?
yeah, it's crazy because I actually went to Animals first from
Hmm.
freelancing. I was freelancing, and then
Oh.
I saw, yeah, I was actually freelancing, and I had to an extent made some success for myself, and I was considering going into the agency model. The next, what's next? And I was considering either building out an agency or, you know, and so I was thinking maybe it would be cool to kind of like work full time at an agency and see, because I had the hints that agency life
Mm-hmm.
was not like an agency wasn't what I wanted to build. I'm not someone who loves to manage people. It's Yeah, I do it, but it's not like I don't want it to be my full-time job, especially when it has to do with client deliverables. Like it's one thing to manage a SaaS team, a team for a SaaS product, and another to manage a team that is delivering content to other people. So I wanted to confirm that that was the right model for me. And so I didn't actually know about animals at that point, which is crazy. I don't know. I had my eyes on Foundation, and I was working on a regular contract with Foundation at the time, but Foundation didn't have an open role. And so one day I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw a Nigerian girl tweet about how she had gotten her dream job, Stella Inabo, tweet about how she had gotten her dream job. And I'm like, a foreign company and a Nigerian, because as of then I thought there was like a lot of bias to hiring full time outside the US. And I was like, I've got to check this company out. And I checked it out and I saw that it had this reputation for being the best content marketing agency in the world. And I have something for conquering things. Like I want to know that I am so good and I'm good enough to get into this agency. And so I decided to apply. And that's how I started working at Animals. So when it was time to leave, I reckon it was actually time to leave a lot earlier than when I actually did. But it was hard to leave because, frankly, it's Animals. I don't think you could pull together a room of people as smart as the people who work at Animals. So it was really hard to leave the colleagues, the friends that I had made there, right? But the reason why I left was because, like I said, it was I went in there to figure out the agency model, saw that it wasn't something that I wanted, and I felt like I could have more control over the kind of projects that I had to work on. the kind of clients I had to deal with if I struck out on my own.
Mhm. True, true. That makes sense. And okay, so I didn't know that you were a freelancer before
I
you
was.
worked with animals.
I was, but
And
I was
mhm,
more part time. I'm sorry. I was more
mm,
part time than I wasn't like a full time thing. I was a blogger and I was
mhm,
freelancing on the side.
mhm. And so when you left animals and when you dived into freelance full time, what were because I know that you have a really strong portfolio, so I'm sure getting some early wins wasn't that tough for you. But still, I'm sure you must have faced some challenges along the way in freelancing because I know a lot of people. And even when, so I come from a corporate background, I was a software engineer. So the first and the biggest worry that I personally had was the unpredictability of income. Because I was leaving like a very secure job and going into freelancing back in 2018, which truly wasn't really that big in industry back then, maybe specifically in India. So yeah, I mean, what were some of the challenges that you faced in freelancing when you left the agency world?
So what happened was I actually didn't leave animals directly. I left animals to join another agency as the head of content. And then so I had this period where my daughter um had a medical there was a medical situation, and so I needed ownership of my time, complete ownership of my time, because there was lots of medical appointments and all that stuff. And I figure if I'd plunged straight into full-time freelance, my motivations may have been different and my fears and challenges may have been different. But in this case, and let's not forget that I had a blog that was generating passive income. So in this case, the money wasn't really that much of a challenge. I think my biggest challenge was imposter syndrome, which I still have.
Same
And
here.
it's
Same here.
crazy. When I tell people that I've written for like so many brands that you can recognize. I have turned down brands that lots of people can recognize and still have imposter syndrome. Like people feel like, oh, what? That she's not actually saying the truth, is she? So yeah, living there was like, I was, I used to be animals used to be my brand identity. I used to hide under the coverage of, animals. She's good because she's from animals. And when I came out, I struggled a lot with imposter syndrome. I feel like I actually didn't stop struggling that much until the LEMA framework came out. And there were lots of people validating that she actually knows what she's doing.
Mm, mm. True, true. So I think most of uh like the biggest creators that I know or I follow, even freelancers, I think all of them suffer from imposter syndrome on some level, whether they know it or not, whether they've admitted it publicly or not. But I've seen a lot of people admit it in private conversations that they suffer from imposter syndrome, and I face that. I mean, almost like very frequently, whenever I lose a client or not particularly lose, but let's say a contract ends and it doesn't get renewed, or, there's a slight dip in the number of inbound leads that I get. And it just starts hitting me, like ocean waves. Like, are you good enough? Is your portfolio strong enough? And I've come a long way. I've been
Yeah.
freelancing for 5 years now, but that imposter syndrome is still there, and I think that is one of the things that also keeps me going. I mean, as much as it pulls me down in, on a mental level, it sort of still acts as that motivation and that motivator element um, that keeps me going and that keeps me very grounded even when I have like bigger projects and things go my way, it just keeps me grounded. So definitely, I mean, I can understand, um, the whole animals and then coming out as an individual, working as an individual with your own skill set.
Yeah.
And so, let's talk about the Lima framework. I mean, how did you come up with it? What is the story behind it? What does it cover? All of it. I mean, I'm really curious.
Okay, so this formula that I use in creating exceptional content,
Mhm,
I've got to name it in such a way that people can easily just, look at it and remember what they need to do, which is
mhm,
like, I feel like it's testament to my skills as a marketer, if I
mhm,
if I should say so. Being able to um what's the word? Being able to package something in such a way that it
mhm.
lends itself naturally to distribution.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I
And
guess to answer your question, the Lima framework came up with me looking at the things that I did frequently and taking that and trying to put it into something, a kind of document that other people can
mhm,
follow, formalizing
mhm,
it for other people to be able to use.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I read the entire thread and I was like, this is, I don't know, like 20 blog posts about content writing and marketing summed up into this one framework. So, and it takes a lot of skill and strategy and planning to condense so many thoughts and so many ideas and so many examples and strategies into one framework that is easily readable, easy to understand, and that is also easy to share
Yeah,
with your team. Because
yeah,
um, I think I see a lot of companies that have small content teams that are pushing out more content than ever because there's inflation and there's a lot of AI tools and there's a whole, uh, I don't know, whole crazy going out there. So I think a framework like the Lima framework that you have created that can sort of act as the foundation of how teams write their content and how they think about the reading experience, not just from a conversion perspective, but also from a consumer centric approach. So
exactly.
I think it ticks all the boxes
Yeah,
in that sense.
especially now. I mean, with this whole thing
Mm,
where search is beginning to use generative AI, search has
mm,
changed. So we don't need to have all those, like SEO is still important, obviously, and I don't know where search is going, but it has changed. The game has changed, and it's more important now more than ever to put the user first. And that's exactly what the Lima framework does. It gives you perspective that helps you focus first
mhm,
on the user.
mhm, mhm. And talking about I mean, no matter how many people I speak to, whether it's a video, whether it's email or social post, AI always tends to come up, and it's a discussion that I think nobody wants to really delve into because there's already so much of it out there.
Yeah,
But I mean, I've seen a lot of opportunities decrease in terms of payouts, as well as just the volume of opportunities out there for freelancers as well. I mean, there's this notion that, in the pandemic, companies were hiring less full-time employees and they were relying more on freelancers. And I am not like a freelancer who was born from the pandemic, but because I started it like almost in 2018. But I can sort of, give my testimony to the fact that yes, companies were looking out for more freelancers in 2020 when COVID hit. But right now, with the inflation, and then you package it with the generative AI, I don't see that many opportunities for freelancers. I mean, I see a lot of people talking about it that, hey, companies are not going to be hiring full time and there are so many layoffs. And this is like the golden opportunity and the golden time period for freelancers to grab opportunities from here and there, from communities and socials and whatnot. But I don't see that to be true. I mean, honestly, what is your take on it? Do you think that companies are actually hiring freelancers more? How is your experience with it?
maybe so I can't speak to this because I haven't actually experienced it personally. If anything, it feels like my demand has gone up since this whole AI saga, and so have my rates actually. But I think that there is because I've been thinking recently about, people come to me for mentorship and they say they want to have this career and stuff like that. And recently I've been thinking about it a lot more. Is it actually wise for someone to start a career in writing and freelance writing right now? I'm not as affected, probably because of the brand that I have built, right? And the fact that people can trust me to deliver a certain quality level. So the people who come to me are people who are after not producing volume, but producing like the highest quality, the people who are investing in their brand, right? For newer freelancers who cannot command, and those people who are hiring more pro freelancers, they have this price point in their heads that they assume that if you're charging lower than that, then you definitely don't know what you're doing. Someone who is newer, more recent in the industry, wouldn't have the confidence to charge 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 per article. And so just by looking at your rates, they probably will already rule you out. And then if you're charging decent rates, you're starting at say 500 or somewhere between 250 to 500 or 750. The brands who are more interested in volume than in quality, they say, why would I pay 500 if I can use AI to generate? I guess the thing there is, one, it's easier to control quality in-house than from freelancers, right? Two, a brand who is invested in content for brand image, a brand who understands that every touch point the customer has with their brand is so important, will invest in the very best that they can afford. And so it might leave newer freelancers struggling because they don't want to take a bet on you. They would rather use the person who is established. And I hope this doesn't scare anyone because I've also seen some freelancers do well. I know of two mentees who are thriving right now, right? I think the final thing is brands who want to push out volume, which honestly is dumb right now. But brands who want to push out volume, they are looking to use AI. And most times, those brands, the people they have in house as their marketers, don't really have a very good sense of what good content is, right? Even though AI is generating content that is shallow, they can't actually tell because it reads good, right? The AI content we see now is grammatically correct. It's beautiful, but there's no depth. And someone who doesn't really know content wouldn't really know that there is no depth. So readers are reading, but they're not actually getting anything from it. They're not able to act on it. They're not able to So I guess that's the thing there. This whole AI thing has separated brands into two places. Brands who want to invest in brand and brands who think content is a way to game the system and get lots of customers. So they want to
Mm.
push out so much content. And unfortunately, freelancers are in the middle of it right now.
Yeah, it's actually a very tough time for freelancers out there. I mean, as many posts that I read that oh, it's a golden period. I really don't believe so, because of a lot of the statistics also that I've been seeing that job boards have reduced opportunities for freelancers, and in fact, companies are hiring people who can work more as strategists or editors or managers or partners, people who have more to offer than just writing. I mean, this is in no way to put writing in a box that it's just writing. I'm not saying that, but brands are actually looking out to uh, use AI and sort of still keep that human touch in their strategy while having an editor or a content lead on board.
Yeah.
So I think that's also happening. But so what do you think is the best way forward for somebody who's just starting out, in freelancing right now? I know it's a very dilly-dally economic time to get into freelancing, but let's say somebody does choose that pathway and is like, no, I'm going to freelance, or I just got laid off, or somebody who's in the similar boat. What would you recommend to that person, especially who's into writing? I'm talking just about freelance writing. What would you recommend to, I don't know, get your first five clients, or how to build a portfolio, or what would your advice be?
So, I think my advice hasn't changed.
Mhm.
Um, it's the skill, which is tricky because most times if you're trying to build up your skill, you actually need to work with an editor. You need the feedback. Um, this is a very tough question. So so many people when they go into freelancing or when they try to start freelancing, they probably take a course that tells them that they need to sell themselves, they need to teach on LinkedIn and teach on Twitter and stuff like that. But if you don't know what you're teaching, you're practically I'm trying to think of the right word, but people see what you're saying. And if someone
Mm,
knowledgeable wants to hire you and they see what you're saying and it doesn't really add up, they already rule you out, right? So my advice is
mm,
if people can take the time to focus on building their skills, their writing skills, understanding how it fits in to the business goals,
mhm,
create a couple of strong portfolios that thoroughly demonstrates that. And I've always said that testing, having like a site of your own where you can test strategies and like, show results is always an advantage. I remember when I was like just a freelancer before I moved into strategy, I had on my website, my differentiating factor was that I had a blog of my own. So your site is not my
mm,
testing ground. I'm testing on my own. I'm learning things that that only come from actually walking the talk, and I can bring this value to your business,
mhm,
right? So I think that's still my biggest advice. Start creating. Don't wait for someone to give you a job. Start creating
mm,
something of your own. People will hire you, and
mm,
and this is another point because people will hire you not just for your writing. Sometimes people hire you for your network because they know that you have access to SMEs that may help them promote the post. Sometimes people hire you for say your LinkedIn followership or your Twitter followership because they know that when this post is done and you tweet it or you share it on LinkedIn, lots of people will read it. So build something for yourself right now. Build either
mm.
a network, build incredible skills, build like not just noise, right? Build a followership so that you're selling something of value to the client. You're either selling your skill, your incredible skill, or you're selling your network, not directly, but like as an add-on. There's just a differentiating factor about you.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I remember, when this whole personal branding uh keyword came in, and everybody in, I think, 2020 late or 2021, everybody started coining and using this term, personal branding. Hey, you should have a personal brand on social media if you want to get more clients. And it used to be really straightforward earlier to get freelance clients. I mean, I can speak that from my personal experience because there were job boards back then also. People used to post on LinkedIn that, hey, I'm looking for a freelance writer or a designer or an SEO consultant. And then you used to just hop into their DMs, send your portfolio, get shortlisted, get selected, or get rejected, whatever it was. And it was that straightforward. But then came this whole personal branding wave, where everybody started creating a lot of content. And then writers who had some following started getting more leads and more opportunities. So, and then I think fast forward to 2023, like 2, 3 years late after the pandemic, uh, there's this term creator, that has come up now. That the creator economy is booming up, and if you're a part, this is like the best time to hop on the bandwagon of creators and creator marketing, and have your own space, have your own product. For example, not just limiting yourself to social media platforms, and because these are all really rented channels, and you should have something of your own. For example, a newsletter, a podcast, a blog, or anything. So I think your advice aligns with what's happening right now, in that creator sense. And so, do you think that this wave of creators that we're seeing, that, marketers are, uh, I don't know, maybe adding another revenue stream through their digital products or membership or courses or something like that? Do you think that's a sustainable way to go forward for freelance? Let's just keep it general freelancers.
So I do think yes, it is a sustainable way to do that. But I also believe in authenticity. Like if everyone is going to start creating a course and selling a course on how to be a freelancer or how to, it's kind of begins to feel like a Ponzi scheme, right? I used to be a blogger. I'm still a blogger, and we had this phase where everyone was you would put up a blog and maybe make $25 today and start teaching everyone else how to make money blogging. It was like this epidemic in the industry, right? I'm hoping that we can avoid something like that. I mean, it's already here, but I'm hoping that this period doesn't accelerate it. There are so many other skills that we have as people beyond marketing skills, maybe except for me because this is all that I've known. I only know things about business and marketing. But like there are people who can cook. There are people who can you don't have to build in this industry if it makes sense.
Mm,
So I don't know if this is good advice, right? You're trying to get clients and it
mhm,
probably makes sense to share more of the stuff that get you clients. But you can also use experiments from something that is in a completely different and less saturated niche to demonstrate your
mhm,
expertise. And then the other thing I wanted to say is still on that authenticity. You're not an expert yet. There are things that I'm not an expert, right? We should always try to have a learner's mindset. So I don't know this thing. There's no need to come out and claim that I know it. If I'm learning how to write, there's no need to position myself as the expert in writing just because I want to attract clients. There are clients who will be attracted to that
mm,
learner's mentality that you have where you're posting an experiment. So today I learned to use the LEMA framework and this is what these are the mistakes I made. These are the lessons I learned. This is how I'll be going moving forward. And this is the
mhm,
results that I've gotten. It's authentic and it adds value to the platform rather than regurgitating stuff that you haven't really experienced for yourself. You took a course and you learned this thing from it. You haven't applied it and you take the course learnings and kind of pass it off as your own. It works. It might work, but I just want people to know that there's so many ways to build a personal brand beyond claiming to be the authority. A good example is Phil Dosetta from she's at Postmark now. Fio is an authority, like she knows a lot, but her brand is not the hey, you've got to learn from me because I know everything kind of brand. She's an open learner. She learns in public and Fio still has the authority. She has still built a very strong brand and authority, even in that manner. So yeah, I guess
mm.
find what works for you, find what resonates with you, stay authentic, build something for yourself, leverage the thing that you've built for yourself to display your marketing
Mhm.
ability. I'm sorry, I'm rambling a lot.
No, 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 no. I just started thinking of all the LinkedIn posts and the tweets that I see almost every single day, where I see a lot of people, and it shows when people try too hard to position themselves as experts, but they're not. It clearly shows, especially if somebody who's experienced enough, for example, if there was a marketing leader in a brand, they would see right through you and right through your posts. So there's absolutely no point in disguising yourself as an expert and, claiming to be, um, I don't know, the best in something that you're still improving on and that you're still trying to, be better at.
Yeah.
And I know you're never really perfect. I mean, I know every writer that who even has a decade of experience, they're still learning how to write better.
Yeah.
Editors are still learning how to edit better. And I think it's just the way that you put yourself out there socially. It's not even about being an expert or something like that, but it's more to do with how honest you are and how authentic you are.
Exactly.
Um, Personally and professionally, because everybody knows how much they can and can't do. So just being honest. And I know there's this, such social posts with a lot of clout, they get a lot of engagement and, all of that. So I think that also plays a very critical role in influencing uh, beginner freelancers, who are just entering because they see two kinds of
True,
profiles. One
true.
is one group is a group of people who are posting original, authentic content, but they're not driving very much engagement online. But I think behind the scenes, they are driving a lot of leads. They're driving actual revenue, they're driving actual business, which basically does not show on the profile that much. And then there's this another group with, I don't know, hundreds and thousands of likes and comments, which seems more interesting and, something like you want to go and grab. So I think a lot of people fall for that trap and yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's one of like the biggest things that I have to tell people when I mentor them or coach them. They're like, okay, when I say, okay, start posting online. So they assume, okay, I should start posting stuff like this person, right? And I'm like, no. First of all,
mm,
if you're I don't know why, but freelancers assume that when you start freelancing, the content you need to share needs to resonate with other freelancers. Whereas
mm,
if you're marketing for your customers, you don't go to speak to competitors. I know we're freelancers are not competitors, but like the content you put out there
mhm,
for your clients are not targeted at your competitors. They're targeted at your uh clients, customers. It should be the same with freelance writing, right? It should be
mm,
content that speaks to the brands that you're trying to attract, not other freelancers, at least majorly. Yes, sometimes you need to. Anyway, back to my point. My point was that most times they come up and they see because when you write posts that resonate with freelancers, there are more freelancers than there are brands, of course. There is a lot more engagement. And so they want to, okay, should I start posting stuff like this? You post stuff
mm,
like that, it attracts a lot of freelancers like you, and they are like, oh my gosh, this is really I can resonate with this so well. And they come into your DMs and they're asking
mhm,
you for coaching. They don't realize that you're all struggling.
mm,
We're all struggling. We're struggling together, right? So yeah, do more of the stuff that will help your potential customers, that will bring value to your potential customers. Even when you're teaching freelancers, remember to frame it for your potential
mm,
customers. There are posts that I do that freelancers can learn from. I don't post often anymore, but when I used to, there are posts that I do that freelancers can learn from. But the person I target that post at is the head of content, is the VP of marketing, is the content manager. Like
mm,
they are the ones who see themselves in the story, even though it's something that everyone can learn from.
mm. No, absolutely makes sense. And I think a lot of people act on uh, the fear of missing out, FOMO, like the Gen Z and Insta people call it. So I think a lot of people act out of that place, and also the reducing number of opportunities. And when you're just starting out, there's just so much going on in your head that you start just posting, you know, and then you see somebody, then you see an actual expert, and you think that, oh, maybe I should copy that. And I have not seen I've not seen that strategy work for anybody at all because it's very easy to just see through all of that. So and yeah, I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe this so well, like you just did, that, why are you creating content for people who are just like you,
Yeah.
who are, it's like, it's like I'm looking for a job, and I'm just creating content for people who are also looking for a job,
Yeah.
which is, I don't know, what do you call it? A lose-lose situation, the opposite of a win-win. But yeah, now that I think about it, it's a terrible idea to do that. Unless and until, of course, you want to have, you want to create master classes, you want to sell your courses, and you have like a decade experience in freelancing, and you would teach other freelancers.
Exactly.
But if your goal is to get clients, I think creating content that resonates with your niche, with your target audience is
The
definitely
best way
very
to go.
important.
Yeah.
And I mean, on that note, I also see a lot of debate and a lot of hot takes on around thought leadership. That when I was reading the Lima framework on SEMrush's profile, there was a lot of talk about value, value driven content. So how would how would you describe a blog post that, okay, this blog post gives me, the reader, a lot of value? How do you explain that value to writers? Because when you explain it to somebody new or even intermediate, there's there's a lot of chaos that's going on, because, and it's very subjective also, because somebody thinks that value driven blog posts are ones that include SME interviews and questions and answers. Others think they include videos by the internal team members. Others think they are templates. So I think it's a very subjective question, but what do you think is a value driven blog post?
My gold metric for value as far as blog posts are concerned is action. Can your reader
Mm,
take action with the information that you've given them? Has the information you've given them compelled them to take action? Have you told them why they should do what you said they should do? Like, and let's think of it like an argument, right? So bear with me. I have a 6-year old, and that age
mhm,
is they question everything between the ages of 3 and 6, maybe even more than 6. They question everything. So I say, put away your school bag.
mhm,
They don't do it right away. Like, why should I put away my school bag? There are a
mm,
lot of other things I can do. If I want if I want something, there are lots of things that I can do. Why should I put away my school bag? And then I say,
mm,
if we put away your school bag, we have more space for you to play. Suddenly it makes sense for them to put away the school bag, right?
mm,
If I
mm,
read your blog, it's because there was something I had in mind to achieve, right?
mm,
The first job you need to do is convince me that what you're teaching is the right way to do this. And I'm not dumb. I
mm,
have probably done a little research on this topic before. I have logic, so I'm going to probe anything you say. If you say something that doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to probe it until it makes sense to me. So the first job is for you to convince me that what you're saying actually makes sense, that I have to do this. And I see that there's a benefit in doing it and in doing it this way. The second job is that you have to show me how to do it. Like, I need to be able to take the instruction that you've given and apply it. I need to be able to see the full picture. Like, there is nothing. I go in to do this thing and I know exactly what I need to do because you've shown it to me. You've not just told me, okay, go and cook rice. You've actually told me, scoop 2 spoons, 2 cups of rice or 2 measures of rice or whatever, and then
mm,
turn on the stove and put water in it and let it boil to a certain percentage and then add your rice. Like, I know exactly what to do because you've told me. And remember, you've convinced me to do it. That is my measure of value. And it should be every brand's measure of value too, because hear me, when a reader takes action, they get results. And results is the only thing that separates your brand from other brands, right? If someone, I think back to like when you say when you fitted a new dress or something. What gave you joy wasn't the dress itself. It was being able to wear it to where you wanted to wear it to, right? And having the compliments and everything like that. That's the result. And so
Mm,
you remember this brand and this designer. Wow, this designer made me a lovely dress that made my day on that day. I got the result. And because of that, I remember. But if the dress is there sitting in your wardrobe, you don't remember who designed it. Like you don't care, right? So if you want to buy next time, you go to the person who has given you results before. So yeah, action.
mm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And especially, I think for B2B brands, that are selling to a more experienced, more targeted audience. For
Yeah.
example, let's say a brand that sells a little bit more complex solutions. Let's say a CRM, a brand that has a CRM that's selling to other marketers or sales teams or AEs. Um, if you can sort of imbibe your not just customer success stories, but show uh, how valuable your product can be and what actions can the audience exactly take, like just basically paint the before and after in a text format. I think that that makes a lot of sense. And on that note, do you think that uh, what's your take on thought leadership pieces, or what's your take on thought leadership and writers involving more and more SMEs into their blogs? What kind of blogs do you think could do well even without thought leadership and SMEs? Because I know, uh, a lot of brands out there don't have that sort of in-house expertise, and some brands might also be rigid to take help from external SMEs. That's also the case.
Yeah.
So,
This,
what do you think about that?
I was actually going to talk about this before you asked. uh, yeah. So, the truth is, but quotes can sometimes derail from the user experience because you're asking your user to switch from being fed to processing something on their own. Now, to answer your question, I was just on Erin Bowser's Thought Leadership podcast, and we talked about what thought leadership is. Even though I think we decided later on that we were just going to focus on the LEMA framework, but what I said there and what I hold is that thought leadership is not an article. It's not an article style. It's the feel that your audience feels from your brand. Like you're not putting out one piece of content out there and saying, "Hey, I did thought leadership." Thought leadership
Yeah, that's so
is a
true.
value that is assigned to you by your content, by your readers. It's not something you create. But experience driven content is what drives that thought leadership feel from your audience, if it makes sense. This is where SMEs come in.
Mhm.
But SMEs matter only when you don't have the experience yourself as the writer. Every piece of
Mm,
article I create these days has an element of thought leadership in the traditional way because I'm trying
mm,
to make sure that I'm infusing experiences that can't be originality. Like this thing we're talking about, we've actually proven it by either doing it or finding people who have done it before. My SMA request these days tends to look more like, can you explain what happened? Why did you do this? What was the problem?
mm,
What challenges did you face? Can you share a screenshot to show me the results? This is what my SMA request looks like these days. And how it comes out in the article is as a story to back up a point that I had made. So I tell writers often that you need to use your data to support your point, not lean on the data for your
mm,
argument. You make an argument and then you use the SME quotes, the stats that you have and whatever to support the arguments you're making.
mm,
I see this often because like lots of people think that what makes a good article is having lots of SME insights and stats and all of that stuff, right? But if you as a writer, you're not making any argument for yourself, you are first of all delegating your authority, and that's like giving the reader work to do. It's your job
mm,
to make a case for what you're preaching. The job of those SME insights and stats that you collect is to support your argument. I said this. This is the way it happens. And here's proof that it happens this way.
mm.
It's very
That's so beautifully
it's very rare
phrased.
that you find an actual quote in my articles. What you'd see is
Mm,
a story about someone who did what I said and got the results that
mm,
I said they would get.
mm,
Meanwhile, remember that I interviewed this person and they told me that they did this. And it's my
mm,
idea. And it's my idea, and what they've said is now supporting me, if that makes sense.
mm, mm. That's so beautifully phrased. I mean, this is also something new that I'm hearing from somebody, that your arguments should be supported by data and not the other way around. And I think what you said about infusing SME quotes and insights, writers should be very, very mindful about that placement, because it also depends heavily on the intent and the context of the article and the title. For example, if I'm just here for a tutorial for, I don't know, how to set up my account with, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
Riverside, right? I should just be able to get
Screenshots.
very short and simple, very straightforward screenshot, step-by-step journey. That's it.
Yeah,
I'm not here for, industry leaders' insights. I'm not here for your survey. I'm not here for your data and whatnot. I am your customer. I'm here to get a solution for your product.
exactly.
So I think, and I shared about this in one of my previous editions of the Content Playbook, my newsletter, that not all brands should be leaning towards thought leadership. And I also remember Tracy Wallace from Klaviyo sharing that on, I think, Erin Balsa's
Oh,
podcast, that thought leadership is not a content type; it's a goal, it's an idea.
exactly. Oh, I resonate
So.
so much with this.
So, and that's the first time, it clicked. It was like a bulb just went off in my head at that time, and I was like, yeah, that's so true, because I had always been debating about this whole thought leadership thing, and I was like, is that even a thing? Because you know how we use SEO optimized, it's like search engine optimization optimized, so it's sort of redundant. The whole term, I have seen like great marketers and so many people use it, but it doesn't make sense. SEO optimized, there is no such thing as SEO
Yeah,
optimized. It's just maybe SEO centric. Like the best you can say is SEO centric or SEO approach, but not SEO
yeah,
optimized. So and that's when I started following Tracy Wallace, her newsletter,
contentment.
Contentment, and
I love Tracy.
yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's great, and yeah, I mean, I think she's one of the most humble marketing leaders that I've seen out there, who's very honest in her, advice, recommendations, tips, and whatever she shares in her newsletters. Also, I mean, I'm a regular reader of it, and that's one of the very few
Right.
newsletters that I read and stick till the very end. So yeah, I remember learning this from her, and yeah. So talking about newsletters, do you think that um, freelancers, apart from client work, like with this dilly-dally economic situation and all of that we discussed earlier, with all the challenges that freelancers are facing, do you think it's a good time to think about other revenue streams, if not courses, but to have something of your own, to build something of your own, and not just necessarily writing. Maybe, for example, I love baking, and I always think that hey, once I'm sort of maybe bored by marketing, or maybe when there comes a time when I'm like, oh, I want to do less of this and more of my baking stuff. I'm going to build a blog about how to bake. So, do you think that this is a good time to start a newsletter or basically build something of your own?
I think the best time was yesterday. Like, if you're a freelancer, yes, it's a business, but you need to have it shows when you have an experience growing something, whether it's a blog, a
Mm,
newsletter, whatever it is. And
mm,
I think I said this before, but like you can do anything, you can even teach about marketing. It just has to come from a place of authenticity, right? Where you're not claiming to be the
mm,
expert. I know it can be a lot to manage because I have a newsletter that I started in December and
mhm,
I've only written that one issue.
mhm,
But like if you can afford it, it's one of the best things to do. It gives you
mm,
perspective, teaches you to run a business, gives you marketing lessons because you once you start creating something, it's human nature to try to grow it. And so it eventually
mm,
adds to
mm,
your experience as a marketer. And then
mm,
there's a revenue opportunity as
mm,
well. I've had an opportunity to have RF sponsor my newsletter, even though it's just started. And who knows what
mhm,
could come out from there. Like yeah, people should build other. We were brave enough to strike out on our own. We should be brave enough to build something of our own. It's the same thing as freelancing, building something else. In fact, it's I would argue that it's even better than freelancing because it compounds. Unlike freelancing where you have to start
mm,
afresh every month. Like if you build 20K in the previous month, you come to this month and you're starting
mm,
afresh.
mm. Wow, you just explained things so beautifully. I mean,
Yeah, thank you.
and yeah, I think I started my newsletter after a lot of, contemplation and doubts that, oh, why would somebody subscribe to my newsletter? Why would people listen to me? And why would they read? So, uh, and my husband just told me that, you think so much and then you never do anything. You never take any action. All you do is client work. And you have so much inside your head and, you keep talking to me about it. And, I barely understand it. So maybe you should go out there and talk to people who really do understand it and,
Yeah.
who you can actually help because, he's also a software engineer. So we worked together and all of that. And he's like, I'm not a marketer, stop telling me all of this and go, build something and do something about
Yeah.
it. And, I remember when I hit like the first 100 email subscribers, I was like, whoa. I remember reading this quote somewhere on Instagram maybe that whenever you want to feel grounded and whenever you want to feel sort of lucky and grateful, just and if you're a content creator, just look at the number of people that are following you and then imagine them physically there in a giant room. And I imagined like 100 people. I was like, oh my God, I've participated in debates, but I doubt there were ever 100
Yeah.
students in my school's auditorium. So, and that's when it hit me that, I think most people are just
Overthinking it.
bogged down by their own thoughts, overthinking, imposter syndrome. A lot of people struggle from it, and a lot of people have so many beautiful things
Yeah.
to share and not just beautiful, but very, very practical, things that come out of first-hand experience. So I definitely second this idea that a lot of freelancers who are in that position, who have decent client work, they should definitely think of building something. And I think this is the best time to do
Yeah.
that. Do you have any, favorite podcast, favorite book, favorite, I don't know, newsletter, anything that you would recommend that other people should go and read and listen to or whatever?
So this is a very trick question for me because I haven't been doing a lot of reading or listening recently, which is
Hmm.
crazy. I mean, the world is practically going to flames right now with marketing and um, but it's not because I'm not interested in the industry, just because, kids, plus client work. I have
Mm,
5 kids for anyone who's listening, and it's a handful. Yeah. And then I have
mm,
to manage all of that and client work. But some of
mhm,
my best recommendations would be definitely Fiona Secker's newsletters. She is absolutely amazing. She gives you so many valuable insights, reminds you of things that you should be paying attention to without talking down to you. Theo is practically the
Mm,
I feel like I've read every issue of her newsletter. It feels like just listening to a BFF talk to you, right? Tracy
mm,
Wallace is great. Erin Bowser's podcast is pretty cool. Yeah. I've also
mm,
listened to Ben Goody's podcast, How the Fuck, which I was on. And that was like a really good podcast. Ben knows how to ask the right questions. Like he will drill you until you give the whole juice away. So listening to people come up on the podcast and talk about their experiences is really cool. Some blogs, some marketing blogs that I feel like people don't talk about that much. Grow and Convert is a good one. For books, I bought Forget the Funnel before it even launched because I
mhm.
honestly
Oh,
100% go Claire and Gia. Like they are amazing. I know whatever they're putting out there is going to be like really cool. And I got the book before months ago before it was even available to order, and I haven't read it. So, but I can 100% say it's going to
mm.
be what. Yeah,
No, that works. Thank you so much for all the recommendations. And it was lovely chatting with you, and it was lovely meeting
yeah,
you
same
finally,
here.
face to face. And I had such a great time. I think with you, I think I could go on and on
Honestly,
about
I feel the same way.
things, just marketing and yeah, I had an
Me too.
amazing
Me
time.
too. Thank you for inviting me.